We're going to talk about the urinary system in this video. So we talked about the urinary system a little bit when we talked about the circulatory system because it's involved in moving everything around the body, one of the things being waste. So we said that kidneys are the thing that filters blood. So kidneys filter, this is just a fun fact, about 200 liters of blood a day. Wow! Allowing toxins, metabolic waste, and excess ions to leave the body in urine. And another function of the kidneys is to regulate the volume and the chemical makeup of the blood. So if there's too much of one thing or another in the blood, the kidneys will take that out. And if there's something where there's not enough of something in the blood, the kidneys will make sure not to take any extra out. It'll also maintain the proper balance between waters and salts and acids and bases. So it has, aside from just making your pee, it has a lot of functions in maintaining homeostasis in your body, making sure all the proper levels of everything are in your blood. So here are the urinary system organs. The kidneys are right in your back, so it's hard to tell because this is a two-dimensional diagram, but these are actually way in the back. They're even behind the layer of tissue that kind of defines your body cavity. Anyway, here are a couple blood vessels. The blood going into your kidneys is called the renal artery, and the blood going out is the renal vein. So anything to do with kidneys is renal. So if you hear of something like renal failure, that means you've got kidney failure. But what I want you to know is the kidney, that's the circled one. Ureter, it sounds like urethra, which I think you've probably heard of before. The ureter are these two tubes, one from each kidney, that bring urine down to the bladder. And here's the urinary bladder and then the urethra. Internal anatomy of a kidney, you really don't have to memorize anything here. What I want you to see is look at all these blood vessels. So the idea is that this is the organ that filters blood and takes all the junk out. So here's the blood, all the red ones is showing you the blood going in. And it's not getting oxygen here, so it's not really red and blue. But I'm showing you in these colors so you can get the idea of arteries and veins. And so the blood comes in and branches out into tiny little capillaries. These things are a bunch of little filters. There are about 1 million of them. They're called nephrons. And they empty into this thing. So the blood comes in, gets cleaned. The clean blood comes out through here, and the pee comes out this way. So here's one of those millions of filters called a nephron. So there are about 1 million nephrons in each kidney. Each nephron is a tiny filter. So it takes the toxins out of the blood and puts the good stuff back into the blood. So this isn't just high to low concentration like we've seen in other units. There's energy put into making sure that the junk goes out in the pee and most of the good stuff stays in the blood. So here's what happens. Here's the blood, and it branches off into these teeny, teeny, teeny little capillaries. And what happens is that more blood can come in here than can go out here. So a bunch of urine, actually, right at this point, a bunch of good stuff comes out. So the things that can come out of the blood are all the things that are small enough. So that includes even glucose and amino acids, everything that's not a red blood cell or something big like that. Everything that's not a big protein can come out. And so what you have coming out here into this is two-dimensional. This is actually like a big capsule that goes around these blood vessels. Lots of good stuff comes out here. And so the whole rest of the tube has to work on getting the good stuff back. So that's this. So in this process, let's see, this is filtration, reabsorption, and secretion. So in reabsorption, you're reabsorbing all the good stuff. So hopefully you have your sugar coming back this way, your amino acids, anything that you need to go back into your blood. Remember, this part's the blood, and this part's the urine or the pee. And then this secretion thing, you use energy to actually move anything else that's bad that you really, really want to get out of your blood into here. And then this goes down your ureter. Well, so it goes out to the pelvis of the kidney, out your ureter, to your bladder, to your urethra, and you pee it out. So let's look at each of these. So all the small stuff in the blood right here, the toxins and the good stuff is pushed from the blood into the nephron. So there's a high pressure in here, and it just forces everything out that can go. Everything that's small enough will go from high pressure to low pressure. And then this stuff, the good stuff, the glucose, all the amino acids, stuff like that, is transported back into the blood. This takes energy. So you need ATP to make sure you keep the good stuff in the blood. And then the last step, anything that really is bad that didn't come out before up here, so some of the blood continues along here. Anything that's bad So anything that's toxic that's still in the blood is actively transporting, meaning you take energy to get this stuff back into the nephron. So then here's what the nephrons really look like. I showed you just as like this kind of pathetic little thing like this, right? With the blood vessels in here. The yellow part is what they really, really look like. And then the purple thing here are the blood vessels. So they're actually, a bit more complicated. But anyway, the tube, I showed you the end of the tube here. So let's look backwards just a second. The end of the tube is right here, and it filters into this thing. I mean, it empties the pee into this thing, a collecting duct. And then all those collecting ducts empty right here. And so they're coming out here into the ureter, and then you pee them out. So the wastes empty into the pelvis of the kidney, which is this, and out the ureter. So then the wastes move to the bladder. They stay in the bladder until you can feel that there's enough in there, and then you pee them out, hopefully to the toilet. Yay! So the structure that actually filters the blood is called the nephron. On a hot day, I haven't talked about this one yet, see if you can do it. On a hot day, if you haven't had enough to drink, your urine will be darker in color than normal. How come? And the answer there is either to conserve water, to excrete less waste, to remove glucose from the blood, or to remove more hormones from the blood. So the answer there is to conserve water. The structure that stores urine temporarily is the bladder. And that's the end. I want to talk about one other thing before I go on, one thing that I kind of should have talked about before but missed a little bit. So let's go back to this process. The good stuff is actively transported back into the blood. So one more note I want to make about this. If you have diabetes and you have way, 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 way too much sugar in the blood, a lot of that is going to come out this way. And even a regular person is going to have sugar here, right? Glucose. And you're going to move it back into your blood. If you have way, way, way too much sugar because you have diabetes, you're not going to be able to move it all back into the blood. So you're actually going to pee out sugar. So that's one of the tests you'll do with a diabetic, or with anyone to see if they have diabetes. You'll get a sample of their pee at the doctor's, send it to the lab, and test it for the presence of glucose. If you've got glucose in the blood, if you've got glucose in the urine, that's suggesting that either there's something wrong in your kidneys or you have way too much sugar in your blood. When that happens, by the way, um, that means you've got too much dissolved stuff in here, and things tend to go from a high to a low concentration. So you've actually got a bunch of water that you're pulling out of blood in that case. When it's water would go from where there's a lot of water to, if there's all kinds of dissolved stuff, there's not going to be as much water here. So when that happens, you actually end up getting a lot of pee in general, a lot of water in your pee, and that makes you thirsty. So you pee a lot if you're a diabetic, and you're thirsty all the time. I will absolutely come back to this. This is a little bit more complicated than I wanted to do in this unit. I will absolutely come back to that when we do how things move through cell membranes. It's kind of an important point. All right, and that's the end of the urinary system.